And as he was starting to move, I looked like this, and also like this big flash. But it was so crazy because it looked like a slow ball of fire just coming out of nowhere on the ground, like no more than 30 or 40 feet away. Okay, my name is Henry Garcia, also known as Chavez. That's my nickname. A lot of people know me that way. I only say that because when they did a security clearance, I actually had to put that down on my also known as. A lot of my friends didn't even know my name was actually Henry. United States Marine Corps, I did 22 years of service. Went to boot camp in 1991, June of 1991, and I retired June of 2013. Retired as a gunnery sergeant. I was born in Tampa Bay, Florida. My dad was in the Air Force. Around the age of 2 or 3, we went to Spain. Actually, we went to Portugal Islands, where my other 2 brothers were born, in Portugal. From there, we went to Madrid, Spain, Terre Haute Air Force Base, where another brother was born. I'm just giving you a number of how many siblings I have. In early 1980s, we flew to Sacramento, California at Motor Air Force Base, where my dad was stationed there for a pretty long time. I like to say that my childhood was pretty good. I mean, I got to play baseball, wrestle, we did karate, I played the violin, the trumpet, the cornet, stuff that my parents wanted us kids to do, to be busy so they can have their own home, and do what they want to do, whatever. But it was also an abusive childhood, to the point where, where my mother's putting makeup on my eyeball to cover up a shiner. Or, my old man brings me out in the middle of the hallway and, kicks me in the chest because I'm not doing the push-ups or whatever it might be. There's an event that kind of leads into why I kind of joined the Marine Corps, hung out with some friends and got pretty shitty, drunk, and about 16, 17 years old. Went home, lay down, woke up in the morning, my father's yelling, and he threw a plate of eggs up against the wall. And at that moment, a little bit of alcohol was still in my system and my body just got really, really hot. And I just stood up. I stood up and it's like, I'm done with this. But my brothers and sisters were at the door witnessing what was going on. Confronted my father. I wouldn't back down. What are you gonna do? He's yelling at me, get the hell out of my house. And I'm like, or else, what else are you gonna do? And I just kept on walking forward. And that certain point, between that point, my dad pulls out a knife from the wooden block and he basically just puts it out right at my gut. I looked at him kind of surprised, but didn't even think anything of it. And I just kept on walking forward. And he was like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? He's like, get the fuck out of my house, get the hell out of my house. My little brothers and sisters was witnessing everything that was going on. And 2 of them went to the bedroom and grabbed a plastic bag, stuffed some clothes in there, threw out the window. I got kicked out of the house in my boxers, my mom's pulling me out, don't get in this fight, basically. Trying to find a place to go stay at, went to school, had to wait for my friends to go ask their parents if I can stay at their house. So I actually stayed at the park under a bench with my plastic bag of clothes, slept the night there, changed my shirt, went back to school. And all my friends that I had asked if I can stay at their house, they said, yeah, and I just picked one. And lo and behold, I stayed at their place. And the funny thing is my grades went up. Like, I was kind of free. Like, home was prison, and then school was like, hey, let's go F off and, be as obnoxious as you possibly can and not really pay attention to school, to be honest. All my friends was everything to me. So my family was, I hate to say it like this, but it was my friends and their parents. They're the ones that took me under the wing, and I got to learn the right thing to do as a parent, and you even get to see the bad things that they do also. So first week of high school, I was involved in a huge fight, standing next to my buddy, several Vietnamese friends, or Vietnamese kids. They got offended for something that my buddy Mike Ledoux did. I walk up, hey, what's going on, Mike? He's like, I don't know, dude. I think these guys are pissed off just because I burp, whatever it is, And I'm paying attention. I'm looking at him like I already knew something was going to happen, so I just kept my eyes on him. We walked through the courtyard of the school. And I told Mike, I think we're gonna get in a fight, bro. He was like, what happened? It was like, I turn around, you see those kids coming towards us. In an instant, it was an instant brawl. My friends come out of nowhere. I mean, it was just a huge melee. I'm swinging, I'm turning, and unfortunately, I wound up hitting my drafting teacher in the face, Henry, and I just, brushed off. And then I saw my buddy Mike up against a tree holding his chest, and he's got a knife wound right near his heart. I had another friend putting his t-shirt on top of his knife wound. And I just come up to him, I'm like, everybody's just shaking from the adrenaline dump, you know, and Mike just reaches out, thanks for being there, buddy. Because I was right next to him when the whole incident happened, you know. I had fractured my hand on that fight, went home, police got called in, you know, whatever. And my parents asked me what was going on. And I was so angry that I didn't, you know, I don't need to effing tell you this or effing tell you that. So I just walked out of the house, and that's pretty much how my my childhood would probably be described as, yeah. I think I've always wanted to join the military. I just didn't know what service. My father was in the Air Force. I always thought I was going to fly. You know, I wanted to see if I can fly, but my math is horrible. You know, math for Marines, you know how that goes. So that kind of went down. So I was thinking maybe you could do some infantry stuff, whatever, but I didn't know if it was going to be the Army or the Marine Corps. My uncle was in the Army. He was a tank mechanic in Vietnam. So I was thinking maybe Army. And lo and behold, there's 4 of us. We were hanging out. It was me, Dennis, Aaron, and Mark. And we were right across the street from the Army and the Marine Corps recruiting station. And we're walking towards the Army recruiting station. It was closed. Like, kind of like those old stories you hear, like, oh, the Army wasn't open. So we went to the next door, and it was the Marine Corps. And we walk in, 4 of us. And this is in October 12, 1990. Desert Shield was foreman at that time. We walked in, and we were that recruiter's wet dream. Like, you're telling me all 4 of you just want to join right now? He's like, yep, we want to join right now. That very night, October 12, 1990, we signed in to join the Marine Corps. We all signed in to be in the buddy program, and we were all going 03 infantry. Let's fast forward a little bit after high school, graduation party, everybody smoking weed, drinking, whatever. I'm thinking, I'm not leaving for another 30 days. Maybe I can smoke some weed and not have to worry about getting a waiver or whatever it was. And my recruiter, they needed to send somebody out soon. Out of the 4 of us, I was the best candidate because I was already out of the house. So I was, you know, it was easier for me to go to boot camp than it was because everybody else was still in school somewhat. So I wound up going to boot camp in June without my 3 friends. What was kind of cool about that, when I was in the boot camp, I got to see another high school friend that was there 2 weeks prior. So I'm a big mob walking around. You know how I was recruit training on pickup day. You know, your trousers on the ground, you're just dragging, and then you see your friend just marching by, like, you know, proud. And his name is Matt Dunn. And I'll never forget that. Unfortunately, he got dropped from recruit training for a medical issue, but I'll never forget seeing him walking by as we're going to the chow and he's going to class, you know. About 4 weeks later, same situation, except it's my friend Dennis, Mark, and Aaron. They're receiving, and they're going to chow, and we're marching just like, probably close to initial drill, I think, at that time for 3 or 4 weeks in. So that was kind of cool to see each other in boot camp, but we were never in the same platoon. We had a platoon of 78 recruits and 48 graduated. That's how high the attrition on my platoon was. We had some pretty mean drill instructors. One of them I'm still friends with. His name is Mickey Arps. He's on the East Coast right now working at, I believe, at Parris Island. But we're still tight. We still talk. We hit each other every now and then. The funny thing is, I didn't realize his birthday's the same day as my birthday. Boot camp was intense. I'll never forget getting my wisdom teeth pulled out. And you know how you get SIQ for like 24 hours? My drill instructors are on investigation. So I had to sit on the quarterdeck with the whole platoon writing out a statement saying, hey, did these drill instructors do this to you? Loyalty, of course, no, no, no. This is how it's supposed to be like, you know, this is boot camp, you know. I'm thinking, for all the crap that I went through as a childhood, this is nothing. This is a cakewalk, you know. So because the drill instructors were pretty hard on us, our senior drill instructor did become the drill instructor of, I want to say, East and West Coast, because there's always a competition, East and West. And I want to say he took it, his name was Sergeant Hernandez. I wish I could remember his first name. Whenever he was gone, we were terrorized. We were freaking terrorized, like from, I don't even want to say what was going on, but like I remember hanging inside the whiskey locker one day with 3 other recruits, and the drill instructors are walking, and he's like, hey, I want you to sound like bats. So we're upside down on the whiskey locker, just squeaking like that. I wanted to laugh so hard, but I didn't want to laugh, you know? And then they open up the whiskey locker, and you hear, you know, it's just like, I remember that part. I remember a recruit, you know, it's kind of funny now, but his name was Yambo, and he was such a short little guy. We were up north, and he was doing something in front of the dryer, and the drill instructor pops him in the butt pushes him into the driver, closes the door. For like a quick second, you know, all you hear is dum. And I witnessed it, and I wanted to run and laugh so hard. I was biting my cheeks, you know. He gets out, and, you know, of course he treats him well after that, but I'll never forget that thing. When I was smoking weed for that graduation party, I forgot to mention this, even within a week, I had to tell the recruiter. So he's like, fuck. So he actually had to go change my contract to open contract because I just violated because I'd smoked weed and I had to get a waiver. So they basically took my O3. So I literally went to boot camp open contract. And I'm literally thinking, like, oh man, I'm gonna be a cook or something that I don't wanna do, you know, whatever it may be. But I went to MCT, and MCT, I found out that I was gonna be a 3531 motor vehicle operator, you know, so motor T, which is kind of funny because when I went to MCT, it's like, oh my God, we got a hump everywhere, like infantry-wise, and now that I'm motor T driver, I was like, wait a minute, I can drive a truck now, and hey, I'm all right with this, you know? Little did I know that just being a motor T, you go everywhere. There's not a place in the Marine Corps where there is no motor T. So you could be with the infantry guys, you can be with a wing, you can be wherever. So I was fortunate enough to be in that MOS, what put me in all these different situations in my career. Motor T school used to be at Del Mar, on Camp Pendleton. So they drove us from Camp Del Mar to 29 Palms. That was my first duty station. Combat Surf Support Group 1 was my first duty station. I showed up, it was Valentine's night, I'll never forget this, February 14th, 1991, I think it was. I see 29 Palms, it's dark and it's pouring rain. So there's like the roads are flooded. I don't know if you've been to 29 Palms, and Yucca Valley Road sometimes floods out, whatever. So the bus is trying to go through the ponds of water, but all you see is lights, you know, lights. You can't see the buildings or whatever. So I'm thinking, man, this place is pretty big, you know. So finally go through the front gate, go to check in. They put us in the transitioning room, slept the night, wake up, open the door. Me and my buddy, Robert Jackson, we open the door, and literally you see tumbleweed just roll right by. And then I really get to see what 29 Palms looks like. It's like, oh my God, dude, where the hell am I, man? This is like Mars. This place sucks, you know? Like immediately, I didn't think I was gonna have a good time there. Wound up going checking into CSSG1. They immediately fat me out to a unit called EAP, Equipment Allowance Pool. And basically what they do is when all the CAXs come out from different units, they come in, they grab our equipment, they take it out, they use it, they bring it back, and we fix it. I met a sergeant there, and this is kind of important for Somalia. His name was Sergeant Carter. He was my platoon sergeant, and good friend, you know, he's rough and tough individual. He's an artillery guy. I got DFAP'd to CSSG1, and he was DFAP'd to 11th Marines. And this was all in preparation for Somalia, Operation Restore Hope. I wasn't supposed to go initially, but we were playing flag football. The guy that was going to, his name was Barry, the guy that was supposed to go to Somalia, I stepped on his foot and fractured it. Yeah, playing football. And because of that, I wound up taking his place. And the funny thing is, my dad was still in a Mather Air Force Base working for a civilian contractor, and I was calling home on a DSN line. It was like, hey, I'm gonna be making it home for Christmas. You know, this is like in November. Cool, I literally hung up the phone and my master guns walks in. He's like, hey, Garcia, I got good news and I got bad news. These are old crusty master guns from Vietnam. He was like, you're gonna go somewhere where you've never been before. He's like, oh yeah, where am I going? You're going to Somalia. You're taking Barry's place. Get your stuff ready. You're out of here next week. He's like, fuck, just like that, you know? I checked in with 1st FSC Forward, went to March Air Force Base, and we're getting ready to go to Somalia. Cool story, I showed up to March Air Force Base. I got bumped off the initial flight, and this would be like December 11th, I think it was. And so I had to wait for one more day at March Air Force Base. I finally get on the airplane, we fly to Ireland, and the airplane that I got bumped off of had a 4-foot hole underneath the wing that a bird either smacked or hit. So they were on the tarmac, still waiting there, trying to get, you know, I don't know what they were trying to do, either move important people over to another plane or whatever, whatnot, but they were still on a tarmac. So we all got off, and it's the first time I was in Ireland and so forth, and it was the first time I ever had a Guinness beer. I was looking at everybody at the kiosk getting this drink, and I thought it was a milkshake. And I'm like 19 years old, 20 years old. I walk up and say, I'll have the same thing. And I threw a straw in there, The barkeep looks at me, puts his towel on his arm, looks at me, and I went and sucked on it, and it was Guinness beer. I didn't know what it was. I was just pointing, I want that. Come to find out it was Guinness beer, and it tasted like coffee, and I kind of spit it out. I was like, what the hell is this shit? And everybody started laughing at me. It was like, dude, that's Guinness beer. At the kiosk over there at the airport in Dublin, Ireland. Anyway, so we fly to Somalia. I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of surreal, humid, muggy. Like you're just instantly wet. You're dragging your sea bags around. It's kind of like a serpentine belt where you put your bags in one area, you put your old school flak jackets in one area, and then you go out there, what's your name? Garcia, okay, here's your 220 rounds, your ammo rounds, whatever. All the stuff that we're required to have. And then I walk over to my gear and I sit down. I was like, where the fuck am I? This is intense. I'm now in Somalia. And then a group of people come pick me up and they take me to the embassy. And at that moment is when they told me, hey, you're going to be a PSD driver for all these colonels and generals for 1st FSG Forward. I was like, all right, cool. So what else do I need to do? I had a Sergeant Land and Sergeant Winters, who were the security detail guys. They're the ones that brought us in, told us what we got to do, when we drive out, what we're supposed to have on us, and so forth. And basically, that was my job, personal security detachment for these colonels and generals. January 6th, so we're at the American Embassy, and there's about 5 of us, myself, Umbrella, Goodwin, Marquez, Rodriguez. Goodwin, Marquez, and Rodriguez are 3 females, and they're in our vehicle. One's an A driver, Umbrella's a male. We take off to the Somali food factory to get some poke bait at the PX and so forth. While we're there, we realized that we should have been in a convoy with multiple other vehicles. We just happened to go down there on our own and such. On the way out, there was a Lieutenant Williams, I'll never forget him. He was a pilot, he was a Cobra pilot. He needed another vehicle to escort his LVSs, these big dragon wagon trucks that had these dividers so they can use it as a serpentine at the American Embassy. So we tagged along with the convoy and we took off from a Somali food factory and we hit to this road called the 31st October Road. It's right in front of an old Russian military academy. There was convoys going in each direction. Armies in front of us, they took a left turn. As they're taking a left turn, the LVS trucks, the big dragon wagons that we're helping escort, they take their turn, and all of a sudden we just got lit up. All you hear is pow, 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 pow. And at first I couldn't tell where they were coming from, and then I realized it's coming from the Russian Academy building. So what happened was we're taking the left turn, Army freaking stops the whole convoy. And we all know as Marines, we always push through an ambush, push, but we couldn't get around it because the road was so small and there was 2 convoys going, one way and the other way. So we actually had to wait in the fucking kill zone, getting shot at. And I can see the LVS in front of me, just like ping, ping. You can see the dust just fly off of it. It's hitting the barriers on the back of the truck. And it just seems to get closer. And all of a sudden, pow, in front of my Humvee, the headlight takes a round and it just like pops. I'm grabbing my M16, and it's like everything's like slow motion. And I wind up putting my M16 on my elbow, and all of a sudden, what I didn't know at the time, another round had hit. Like, if you know what a Humvee is, there's a power steering regulator in front. It took a round and shot Dextron all over the windshield, so it looked like blood. But I didn't see it at first. So I'm over there with my M16, and I'm thinking in my head, oh my God, my first drive-by, I was like, gah, gah, gah. And everybody, the females in the back were shooting, for the exception of the A driver. She was just paying attention to what I was looking at on the road. And I'm engaging, pa, pa, pa. Corporal Umbrella was asking for another magazine of ammo, and I had my magazine pouch right here. I could see him reach down, take the ammo up, and as he's doing that, I turn around, I see the red windshield, and it's just Dextron. But at first I was like, oh my God, did I get hit? It's just an instant shock. Goodwin looks at me, he's like, you're not hit. And she hits the windshield wiper, and you can see that windshield wiper just wipe down the red Dextron on the windshield. We were engaging. I started shooting at towards the building, and we saw something at a tree, and it was kind of weird looking. Like, it didn't look like a human at all. Like, I just know it's not right, right? And I remember shooting, and I can hear the lieutenant's pistol, pa, pa, and everybody else, pa, 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 So we're shooting, and all of a sudden at the same time, me and Corporal Umbrella, we shot, and then we saw a person fall. It was, we both always say it was a shadow. Something just fell. We never wanted to take credit or whatnot. we noticed that the Army started pushing their vehicles towards out of the kill zone. We started moving forward, and then we finally pushed out of the kill zone and drove a little bit up towards the American Embassy, took a left. We're pulling right into the front gate of the American Embassy in a serpentine belt. And at that point, we got lit up from the rooftops right behind us. And that was the first time I was ever actually scared. Because before I was like, hey, I'm doing my job. But knowing that you're right home, close to, like going into the gate and you're free, under the security of the American Embassy, we get lit up from behind. And I could feel, like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, the hairs on my head, my body got really hot, got sweaty, and I got really, really angry. Almost an uncontrollable anger. Finally got in, no one shot back. We couldn't see who was shooting at us and so forth. Even the LVS driver or the LVS Dragon Wagon truck in front of us had a 50 cal mounted on a ring mount. You could see him turn around and I can only imagine if he'd have hit him with a 50 cal, but nobody shot back. So that was my first fire, and that's how I earned my combat action ribbon. The very next day, because of that ambush, on January 7th, General Johnston, who was commander of Operation Restore Hope, did a raid on General Adit's compound. And that's why I brought up those 4 warehouses that was across the street from the Russian Academy, because the very next day they were going to do a raid. And I actually took part of that raid because I was driving the generals and so forth. I'm up against this wall, me and Corporal Kiros. The officers that we were driving around were talking with other officers. We knew it was going to kick off pretty soon. And all of a sudden we see the Cobras flying, and they're just like wasps just circling the whole area. It's just their guns, just I thought it was the coolest shit I've ever seen in my life. He's like, look at that. And all of a sudden, like all the guns started firing, and we just went like this because all the brass casings just started falling like rain on top of us. It was pretty intense because I can remember holding my head and the brass is popping off our head, and I look up and I see these little Somali kids just running up and grabbing the brass because they can make money off of it, and you see them drop it because the brass casing is so hot. But they're like, oh, so they grab their shirt and they're like, trying to pick up all the brass casings so they can take it and sell it to whomever, And then you get to see, I believe there was a tow that was shot. An Amtracker shot a tow into the building, and I thought the building exploded, but it was somebody had actually shot a tow missile into the building, and I think they killed one Somali. I'm not 100% sure on the casualties over there. I brought up Sergeant Carter up earlier, and the reason why is because when he was defalced and went to 11th Marines, 11th Marines became a provisional rifle company in Somalia. And I think it was 311. January 12th, there was a patrol sent out, and he was the patrol leader, and unfortunately they got involved in an ambush, a firefight. When they were doing accountability, they were missing one. You can hear his weapon firing. And this is a story that my friend had told me. Unfortunately, he got killed. He got shot in the chest and got shot in the head, I believe it was. I didn't know Sergeant Carter had taken that squad out, because I was PSG, they told me, hey, we got to go pick up a Marine. And I'm like, all right, cool. Where we're going to go pick up a Marine, And I didn't realize the convoy that I was part of was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And there was ambulances. It was like, what's going on here? So I was trail with Lieutenant Colonel, and we're driving, and we go towards the Medina area, and come to find out there's a Marine down there that we're going to go pick up his body, in a sense. And I had no idea that's what they meant by we're going to go pick up a Marine. So it was that was the first time that I realized, wow, where's a motherfucker? You're gonna lose a Marine. I could actually get killed. He obviously got killed. I started to realize how dangerous the area that we're in at that time, Even though I've been shot at before, but it was kind of final knowing that a Marine passed away, And his name was PFC Dominguez Arroyo. You realize how final it is knowing that, hey, you work your ass off, boot camp, whatever it is, and then you're put in a dangerous situation, and you never know what the circumstance is going to come out. You might not make it, or you might make it and be able to tell stories and such. But to actually witness that and see somebody that's no longer going to be able to tell their story, very surreal, very surreal. I remember walking in my hooch, and my buddy Kozowski goes, hey, you feeling all right? I was like, no, man, I'm fucking freezing. It's hot out there, I lay down on the cot, and I woke up, and I'm being carried on the same cot to the BAS. And I'm wondering, what's going on? And I passed out. I remember Kozowski holding the cot right here. I'm looking up, I can see him. I don't know who the other people are. I wake up, I'm at the university. So the American Embassy's right here, then the university's right here. This is where the Army was at. They also had a Swedish hospital over there. So they took me over there and they put me in a tub. My body was just overheating. So I woke up in an ice bath, just like in two freaking beautiful redhead Swedish women were like working on me or whatever. And then I woke up later at the MASH unit on the airfield, just fucking like, you know, in a gown or whatever, just recovering from malaria. And I asked him, what happened? He was like, oh, you caught malaria. Luckily, it's not the one that stays with you forever, but you're just sick. We might be sending you back to the States, you know. But it just so happened that when I got sick, they suspended flights for like 5 days because the Somalis were shooting at the airplane when they were taking off. So they suspended the flight so they can secure the area to make sure there's nobody shooting at the aircraft. A lot of people didn't think it was, but like it was pretty active. Somalia was my first time being in combat. So just like a young Marine, I was like, yeah, I'm pretty badass. You know, I went to combat, I seen this, I've done that, yada, yada, whatever. But the crazy thing is that when I came home, no one was there. No one knew that I was coming home. So on May 1st, I landed in March Air Force Base, and there was a GOV that took me to 29 Palms. Remember I told you that I checked into my unit and was immediately fapped out to EAP, and then I got DFAP. So when I got DFAP, I immediately went to 1st FSC Fort. I was never put into the Motor T section. So they didn't even know who I was. They just know there was a body that went to Somalia that was part of the Motor T section. And so when I showed up, no one knew that I was coming in. A first sergeant and a captain, I think it was a company commander, they told me, hey, dust off your weapon, come back tomorrow morning, clean your weapon, and you're gonna go on a 96. I flew in on a Sunday. So Monday I cleaned my weapon and they put me on 96 from Tuesday till freaking Friday. He was like, so I gotta come back on Friday afternoon. He's like, no, come back Monday morning. I was like, fuck yeah. So I went from a combat environment, and within 2 days I was in Sacramento with my friends drinking a beer, you know, and I thought I could drink beer like I did before, you know, so I got shit faced. And stuff came out of my mouth that I cringe thinking about. Like, they didn't need to know all that stuff that I got to see or that I saw, witness, and even what I've done, you know. And I say that in hindsight because years later, I've heard some of my friends like, dude, I didn't realize you had to do all that. And it affected me because, you know, you're my friend, I care about you. That made me really understand that sometimes you might need to sanitize those stories to your friends so they don't have to relive something that you might have gone through. Does that make sense? I brought that up because there was no support for somebody coming back from a combat environment. So I literally was drinking to freaking calm myself down. There was an NCO parade where I was in formation, a vehicle backfired, and I immediately swung that weapon up and, you know, in formation while we're marching. Instinctively, you know, it's just like I was just ready. And my buddy next to me was like, whoa, 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 you're not back in Somalia, because they knew I just got back. And they pat me on the back, you know, put in line. I'm like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with me, dude? Like, why am I hair trigger? Why am I anxious? Why am I, you know what I mean? My healing, unfortunately, took by drinking and talking. And the talking part really helped me because I was able to process what I had gone through, you know, what my friends had gone through. And it made things easier over time. And now we're talking about 10 years later. So in 1993, that was the end of Somalia. Now we're in 2003 for the invasion. That was the next time I was involved in combat action. So 9/11, I was with 111, and we were in a CAX. No, it was a Desert Fire X. And I'm on a sand table with my Marines showing them how to do a proper mortar pool security, how to set up, you know, how to use your weapons, your left and right, you know, your range cards basically, and your sectors of fires and such. I remember seeing my MTO walking towards me from the COC, and he goes, hey, I need to know who's from New York and who has family near the towers. I was like, why? He's like, it just came over the radio, one of the airplanes just crashed into the towers. We're in the desert, we're in the field, like 2 weeks into our training of a 3-week, you know, training environment. I almost said this to him. It was like fucking bullshit. Because a week prior, I had given him a book by Tom Clancy. I think it's called Bound by Honor. And it's the one where the airplane crashes into the White House and kills the president. And then Jack Ryan becomes like the vice president or whatever it was. So I'm thinking, are you fucking with me? You know, you're just bringing something like a same situation that was on Tom Clancy. And he was pretty adamant. He was like, all right, sir. So I asked all the Marines and nothing happened. So I walked to the COC and all the XO, CO, everybody was just listening to the radio traffic. And we didn't have, you know, back then, we didn't have a TV. You know, it was just 2001. So we didn't even get to see anything that happened, airplanes crashing, nothing until a week later when we went to Camp Wilson. And we're strolling in, we go into the E-Club at Camp Wilson. They had TVs on the corners and they're replaying all the airplane crashing. And this is the first time we're actually witnessing it. Like all 11 Marines just like, what the? And it happened like a week prior. So we didn't have the same reaction that everybody else did when it happened, you know, like that morning on Tuesday morning, I think it was. So that was my story for 9/11. Fast forward a year and a half, we get word that we're going to be deploying. I was headquarters battery, and what happened, stop loss kicked in. Our gunnery sergeant, who's filling a master sergeant billet, got sent to the wing. Stop loss happens. So now we're empty master sergeant billet. So all of a sudden, it's like, is it going to be me? So I got moved up to the battalion truck master, and I was in charge of all the equipment, including the 3 batteries that are going to go to Iraq with us. So what was cool about that is that I was filling a billet way beyond my expertise, but I knew what my job was, and I was able to take all that gear and equipment to Iraq. We did lose some pieces of equipment, RPGs, you know, gunfire, you know, gunpowder, even battle damage, basically is what I was getting at. But every one of my Marines came home. 1st Battalion Left Marines. We didn't lose one. We had some casualties, not directly from my unit. I believe his name was Sergeant Clark. Took a round to his arm. And I'll never forget seeing him on the road to Iraq. And he goes like, hey, you better, because he was a forward observer. He goes, you better make sure you take care of yourself, blah, blah, whatever. And a week and a half later, we found out that he was rolling the back of a canvas and something hit him in the arm, like a baseball bat. And he turned around, was ready to hit somebody. Because like, why the hell did you do that? And then he looked down and his arm was just flopping. It broke all the bones in his arm. He was like, oh crap. So he got shot by a sniper. Think about it, right? Here's his head, here's his arm, you know? So I'll never forget when I saw him later, he's got his arm in his sling. He's like, didn't I tell you to take care of yourself? I'm sorry, Staff Sergeant, I'm sorry, you know. So I was a battalion truck master. My biggest stress was making sure the Marines came home. You know, I made a promise to their wives and so forth that I'll bring them home. That was the hard part, dealing with the family members first. And then when I was in theater, my brain was so, okay, where's all my trucks? Where's all my Marines? Constantly. That's always in my head. Where are my trucks? Where are my Marines? Where's my weapons? You know, accountability, accountability, accountability. But those Marines, all the training that we did, those Desert Fire Axes, those Caxes, those guys ran like a smooth, oiled machine. Like I had no problems with giving an order direction, whatever it is, and fire and forget. They freaking did their jobs. And it was an amazing group of Marines that I worked with. I have nothing bad to say about that except for our CO, you know, battalion commander. Not the best leader, I can definitely say, but the XO and everybody else underneath them. I was privy to be able to see some stuff happen in the COC. Should have never happened in front of junior Marines. Colonel yelling at COs, you know, don't do that, you know. It was just unprofessional. And those guys are, the people that he was yelling at, top notch. Like, he's a dummy for doing what he did, you know. And it changed the mood of who he is, but it made us tighter because he was that, you know, I hate to say it, like he was like that one greenbelt drill instructor that's just an asshole, you know, and it just makes you be a tighter group of people because he was, you know, not the best individual to be a leader. We were always getting shot at. We were always shooting back. We've never trained to fight that war in that manner where we're just on a highway leapfrogging. One infantry unit goes up, secure an area, then then a artillery unit moves up forward, support. You know, we supported Recon, a Godfather. I'll never forget, you've seen Generation Kill, right? Yeah. So there's that scene where he's on a road, hey, this is Godfather. You know, it didn't go out the same way, but the voice was almost exactly like it. And I'm listening to the radio traffic, and he calls in Artie, on this one bridge area. I don't know if the circumstances, if Recon was either pinned or whatever it was, but we just unleashed, right? And I'll never forget when we asked for battle damage and he responds, hold on and let the dust settle, you know? Dust settled, he was like, oh yeah, you got a lot of them. He's like, repeat, you know, fire again. When we finally drove past what we did the devastation on, dude, there was bodies everywhere. And they were wearing black pajamas, little red freaking handkerchiefs on the arms, the Ba'ath Party members, you know, and it was just total devastation. All along the route, we got shot at through Nasiriyah. Obviously, I've seen a lot of the stories of Nasiriyah, so I won't go any further on that. Other than the fact that we had a battery commander, I will say this. We had a battery commander from Alpha Battery, Archangel. His name is Jason Fry. His battery was pushed past Nasiriyah to set up an artillery firing point to shoot back into Nasiriyah. So it'll be like this, you know. While they were finding an area to set up the 6 guns, RPG hits the door. Hits the door while he's on the radio and takes his arm off completely. The RPG hits into the engine deck, blows the first sergeant out of the gun turret. He flies out back. He's got shrapnel on him. I believe the driver's knocked out. And then there's Sergeant Rudd and young Lance Corporal Caluso. And they saw the CEO holding his arm, and it's just gone. And they're using the radio cord to wrap his arm up for, like, you know, to stop the bleeding, you know. And this is all stuff that I've heard from those guys tell me. So I was not there at the time. And it's the first time that it was Alpha Battery that any artillery unit actually did a direct fire on the buildings that the RPG came in from. So that was kind of significant too, since I think either the Vietnam War, which I think it was, or the Gulf War is when the last time somebody actually dropped a gun and did a direct fire on the building. Okay, we lost a battery commander, somebody else took over, but he's a good friend of mine. Later on down the year, his son winds up going into high school and learns how to make bionics and actually made an arm for his dad. I'm glad that I took those Marines out and brought them all back. You know, didn't bring all my pieces of equipment there and back, but I did. My second combat action was on April 6th. Several days prior to that, we wind up destroying 22 pieces of artillery, not artillery, but anti-aircraft pieces. So that's kind of like my glory to fame. I got to put those little thermite grenades on top of them, just destroy 21 pieces of, anti-aircraft. 6 days later, we're trying to cross the Diallo River. I might be saying it incorrectly, but the bridge was blown. I believe it was 5th Marines was going from left to right, and half the bridge was already blown. And what our job was to find a place so we can set up a pontoon bridge, you know, next to that same bridge that was blown up. While we were trying to locate a good position to put those pontoon bridges to go across, we started getting gunfire from across the river. And it just, you know, it's kind of funny. I'm right next to my boss, and we hear snap, snap. You know, like, you know how you're in the range, the rifle range, you pull the butts down, you hear the bullets fly over. I was like, sir, that's not close. Because he was doing this, he was doing that. It's like, sir, that's not close. Yeah, I know what close is, you know. A minute later, pow! Sir, that's close, get down. We hit the ground, there's bullets just flying right at us. And he was like, We happened to be, the road sits up high, and there was like a little berm, and that's where we were at. And then on the other side is another berm that goes into the river, right? The Iraqis were shooting at us from across the river, but we happened to be below the berm. So I had a saw, that was my teal weapon. So I put that thing down on the ground, looked down, saw where they were running, and I see them go into this tan Conex box, and I just unloaded. You can see the metal, just ting, 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 ting. My driver, Dibble, was shooting at the same area. The MTO looks down, oh, I see it. He starts shooting in the same area. And then everything got real quiet. And all of a sudden, I see here comes the colonel walking up. It's like, what's going on, guys? I'm literally behind a pole, and he's just walking along with a sergeant. He's like, sir, we're getting shot over there. He looks over there. He comes right below the berm, gets on the radio, and calls Artie in, dude. Fucking, here comes DPICM round. He's like, holy shit. It's like, I mean, he's the colonel. He was just calling that shit in. I was like, holy crap. And everything just settled. You know, I think 2-5 or the 5th Marines that was moving in from left to right, they secured the portion they needed to secure, yada, yada, yada. And then that was my combat action at that point. And then after that, we were able to build that pontoon and be able to cross the river, and all, you know, RCT-1 was able to function. So there's this donkey just fucking, I don't know where we were at, but it just always seems everywhere we went, there was a donkey just hee-haw, 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 right? And there's this one donkey one time, I wish I could remember where we're at. And I remember I was shaving my head and I had my top off. You know, we have our mop suit on. So I have no shirt on and I'm just shaving my head. And I kept on hearing that, hee-haw, hee-haw, hee-haw. And it got real quiet. And then all of a sudden you hear, and the whole camp started fucking giggling, dude. Like they started laughing. And I'm like, oh shit, did somebody just shoot the fucking donkey? You know, like, and I started laughing. So I finished shaving my head, you know, whatever, and went to the COC and come to find out one of our battery gunny was walking by and he stepped on like those little ditches for water just to run through and he slipped and his weapon, pow, just fucking fired. Like it wasn't, he slipped, but it was an ND, you know? And that's where that gunfire came from. But the donkey, didn't hear from him ever again, dude. It was just kind of funny how it was just like a low, you know, hee-haw, hee-haw, super quiet. And then you hear the giggles of the Marines fucking laughing. When we were retrograding, we were at Diwania. I have a buddy of mine. He knew that 1st Marine Division, RCT-1 was in Diwania. He was searching for me. And he only knows me as Chavez, because we met each other at a bar at Rookies that's in Camp Pendleton, or near Camp Pendleton. And we became really close friends, just drinking buddies and so forth. And we went to the invasion and he knew that I was with 1st Marine 111. He was trying to find me. He's in a helicopter with his, with his crew. They have to land in Diwania, do some job or whatever they had to do. But he went looking for me. Come to find out, he was searching for a guy named Chavez. And he winds up finding my brother's unit, 211. And he saw my brother and he goes, oh, you almost look like him. He's like, do you know a guy named Chavez? He's like, yeah, Chavez, that's my brother. I'll take you to him. So he walks and finds me at 111, 211. I was at 111. I'm typing awards for my Marines. And I hear, Chavez. And I turn around, there's Joey, you know, and he's looking at me and here's my little brother. I've seen my brother throughout the whole war since, you know, here I am, get to see him at in Diwania. He's like, what the fuck's up, guys? You know, so we go over there, we hug, we take pictures and so forth. And that night before, I caught my Marines, they found a stash of freaking booze from the city that we were at, Diwania. So I confiscated like whatever they gave me, you know, just give me all that liquor. And I know damn well they kept some, you know, and I confiscated that liquor. We all had a couple drinks that night, drinking some horrible wine. But I mean, it got us drunk, you know, but we were able to sit there in Diwania and talk about what had happened throughout the whole invasion. Unfortunately, he lost his friend the very first day of the war. Helicopter went down with 15 British Marines in it. On the night of the invasion, the 46 went down with 4 crew members and 15 British Royal Marines in it, yeah. So that was his beginning of the invasion for him. Then we started doing the retrograde bag. So I actually went to Kuwait on ships. It was 7 ships, one of the largest fleets ever taken, that's ever left to go to war since I think World War II. You know, I didn't know that until we were on the ships. And then on the way home, did the same thing. Our ship sucks. Our ship couldn't stop in Australia. So everybody else got to go to Australia. We went to Hawaii because our ship was being decommissioned and was gonna go to Thailand, I think it was. So we never get an opportunity to go to Australia, but we did go to Hawaii. And we spent like 4 or 5 days in Hawaii, had a blast. It was kind of like a decompression, you know. You invited your girlfriend or whoever it was, your wife. And then we finally went to Camp Pendleton. We were supposed to debark at San Diego port, but we wind up doing a amphibious offload at Red Beach. And it was close to our Las Pulgas. So we were able to take all our gear. Instead of driving from San Diego all the way to Pendleton, just from the beach to Las Pulgas. So it was an easy retrograde back. I was the last Marine off my ship with the embarker. Everybody was gone by midnight. Cool things, I go to Rookie Sports Bar right after the invasion, and it just closed. And my friends are still working, and it was like, he comes out, Chavez, and he gives me his clothes. I go in, and I basically stayed there till 6:30 in the morning. We closed it, we cleaned up the place, we were drinking beers, I was telling stories. Went to formation, like 7:30 in the morning, released the Marines, and I went home and crashed out for like a full freaking day. There was a welcome home party at Rookies, so it was kind of cool because it said, welcome home Chavez. And I didn't even see the sign. I just like was so anxious to get in. Hey, what'd you think about the sign? I was like, what sign? I walk out, bigger than shit. It says, welcome home, Chavez. It was like, fuck. Coming home was pretty, it was interesting because you're decompressing. And then you're also decompressing, helping those Marines that are coming back because they're gonna go back to their wives. You know, they're gonna go back to their girlfriends. And I already know what happens when you, from Somalia, what somebody might do, you know, just to dumb down the feelings that they have. So there was a lot of like safety briefs, I guess you would say. Hey, watch it what you're drinking. You guys gonna overdo it. I already know this is gonna just be aware of it, you know. I was trying to be the good staff NCO for those Marines, but coming home was interesting. I didn't notice it at first until after I was helping them out, I guess. Like I helped them kind of change their perspective of what they were going through and what they were dealing with. A lot of them just get really sunk into what happened to them, and they go in this loop where they just keep thinking about it. And it just makes it worse if you keep thinking about the whole situation. And inadvertently, I was telling them, like, hey, you know what you did you know what I saw you do? You did this. You kicked ass on this. You kicked ass on this. You helped me do this, yada, yada, yada. And you can see his eyes just like, oh. To him, it was like, well, I'm supposed to do that, you know, because he's a Marine, you know, I told him to do it, whatever. But no, man, if I had to worry about you doing something, I would never put you on that task, if that makes sense. But I trusted you, you did it. So you can see the confidence kind of build back up, you know. It's like, oh, thanks, you know, Gunny, thanks for telling me about that, yada, yada. And I kind of learned later on down the road to try to help vets, Marines, and so forth that, you know, try to change your perspective of what that situation was by talking to other people that was there with you. And I promise you it'll help you out in the long run. 2004, I got orders to the drill field. Sergeant Major Bell, I'll never forget him, recently passed away last year. We were on the ship of the USS Comstock, and we were holding a corporal's course on the ship going back to the States. And he happened to be on board. He comes to me and he goes, hey, Garcia, he's like, you got your coin? He goes, my coin? He's like, he took over for Sergeant Major Duffy, who was a division sergeant major. He's like, yeah, Sergeant Major Duffy says that he gave you a coin because you went to 111 instead of recon. And he goes like, yeah, I don't have it here. It's in back home. He's like, all right, just consider it cash. What do you want to do? He's like, what do you mean? He's like, where do you want orders? He's like, I want to go to the drill field. You got it. Just like that. It's like, I'll never forget, on top of the ship of the USS Comstock, candid conversation. He remembered what Sergeant Major Duffy did for me, you know, or I did for him actually. And he says, hey, cash in your coin. He's like, drill field. So I got drill field like within 6 months. So I went to the drill field in April of 2004. Being a drill instructor, and I'm sure you've heard this before, it's super intense. And the people you work with are super intense. So everything is high level. You don't mess up, don't fuck up, you know, be professional, yada, yada, yada. But it's also a dog-eat-dog world, you know, because you want to be better than that one drill instructor. You want to be that better than that other drill instructor. I got called in to help do an 8-mile hike for Fox Company. So I came in one day early and I didn't even check out off a leave. And I still had my backpack packed from DI school. So you have everything inside of it. No one told me to you should lighten it up a little bit because you're gonna run circles around these recruits. If it's an 8-mile hike, you're gonna run like almost 16 miles because you're literally just running circles around these recruits. But no one told me to lighten the load, right? So I'm freaking running circles around these kids. And I started feeling dehydrated. I started pounding water, whatever, and it wasn't working. I felt like I had to pee all the time. I still don't know what was going on. And I was yelling at some recruits in the middle of the highway, and the first sergeant grasped my arm. And he saw my eyes, and my eyes were doing this. They were just twitching. And he goes, Corpsman. I goes, what's going on? And he was like, your platoon is halfway up the hill. You're just standing here, just yelling, you know? And so the corpsman comes up. He looks at me, he's like, hey, this guy's not, his eyes are shaking, you know, and he takes off. Corpsman takes me at the back, give me the silver bullet, 106.5 body core temperature. The XO was about to call helo in for me. Instead, because we were close to the BAS, they just gave me a ride to there. Because I went down at the 7-mile mark at the 8-mile part of the hike, you know. I'm being driven in. The IDC, I forgot what the acronym for IDC stand for, but the naval corpsman, the head chief guy there, he comes running out. Get him on the stretcher. Why the fuck is he walking? Get him on the stretcher. They put me on the stretcher. They took me in. Ice bath. You know, ice cubes on my head, my armpits. They're trying to bring my body core temperature down, and I passed out. And then I woke up and, hey, you're gonna go SIQ, and you're gonna get further notification what you're gonna do next on Monday. So I show up on Monday. Remember how I told you I didn't even check in off a leave? So unfortunately, that first sergeant didn't even know I was on that I was out there working, and it became a CCR, where they make an incident report. The drill instructor went down. That's kind of big when a drill instructor goes down for heat stroke, and he couldn't explain why I was there without him knowing. So that was kind of a bad thing for him, you know. So what wound up happening was they let me do SIQ until Monday, and then they sent me to hotel company, because hotel company's picking up a new platoon that Friday. So it would have been perfect for me to go with a new platoon than it was for these guys halfway through training, and then I go down for that 8-mile hike. So I wound up becoming hotel company. Now that I realize in hindsight, hey, dude, you're running twice as much as they are. You're running circles, you're yelling at them, you're exerting more energy. You gotta unlighten that pack behind you. But yeah, being a drill instructor, it's long periods of excitement with short spurts of boredom. While in combat, it's like long periods of boredom with short spurts of excitement, right? And those 3 years was intense for me. I did get myself in trouble on the drill field. I did kind of make up for it. I did 3 kill hats, 3 J cycles. So I was six cycles as a green belt. I did 2.5 as a senior, and then I took over as a chief drill instructor for Fox Company. So I didn't have a break. I did 3 years straight. I mean, I was supposed to go on a break on go routing. That lasted for like 2 weeks, and then the colonel comes down and he goes, I got good news and I got bad news. It's like, what's the good news, sir? And I believe he is a staff judge advocate officer. So, you know that trouble you got yourself into before you left hotel company? He's like, yes, sir. Because like, I will help you out with that. Here I am that I preached, don't drink and drive, don't drink and drive. And here I am, I blew a .8 and freaking, just a little bit above .8. And I got nailed with a wet and reckless. Instead of a DUI, I still got a wet and reckless. But the Marine Corps is like, hey, you know, you messed up. You're not supposed to be doing that, you know, especially you as a leader. And I'm on the drill field, you know. So amendment letter, your fitness report, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so what's the bad news, sir? He's like, you got to go back to work. He's like, fuck, where am I going? Because you're going to Fox Company. I just relieved 5 hats. They were IT and the recruits late at night. Dumb. I appreciate him. He was Colonel Airy is his name. Just a caveat for that, when at the very end, when my tour was done, I thought for sure I was a terminal staff sergeant. I get a call from my first sergeant. He goes, hey, congratulations. He's like, for what? He got selected to gunny. And I was driving at the time. He's like, you know, I was like, what? I did? He was like, yeah. Oh my God, dude, my life. You know, like I thought, another 10 more years, if anything, right? I did have a sergeant major later on tell me, he was like, hey, I saw your package get read up at Headquarters Marine Corps. And I can tell you why they selected you for promotion. It was like, you didn't stop working when you got in trouble. You went from green belt, senior, and then you became the chief drill instructor. Like, you did not stop working. Everybody voted yes, just for the simple fact that you kept on, you know, busting your ass and you did good things afterwards. I was like, fuck. You know, it just goes to show, you just bust your ass, do your job, do your work. People will pay attention and notice you. You know, I used to tell my junior Marines about that, but it paid off for me, you know, so. I'm the prac drill instructor, and I'm on the quarterdeck, and the whiteboard's right here. You have the duty hut doors right here, and I'm looking at the recruits. This is camp in MCRD San Diego, and the head is right behind me. So I'm angled like this, hatch is right there to walk into the squad bay, and I'm talking to the recruits about, you know, prac. You know, I might even mention something about me being in Somalia, and, you know, these kids are like, oh, you know, wide open, whatever. But I kept on noticing their eyes looking towards the back of me. And I'm like, why do they keep looking at me? And the first thing that popped in my head is maybe my chief is just watching me give a class, you know. So I kind of positioned myself so I can see what was there. And I looked, and it was a seagull. And I'm in my chucks. And I get so freaking pissed off that I immediately went straight to that seagull. I wind it up and I kicked. I thought I was gonna miss it. I just wanted, you know, smacked it so hard, dude, it hit the wall on the freaking head. Shit and blood went up from the bottom to the freaking top. And the bird's just like, you know? And I turn around, and I was so freaking angry that they were not paying attention to me. They were worried about a bird, that I turned around and was like, get on your feet right now. And I grabbed 10 recruits, stuck them on a quarterdeck, got everybody else online. I grabbed the house mouse, and I told them, get in the duty hut and go grab me a trash bag. And I grabbed 2 other recruits, And I told him, clean that freaking mess. You know, the bird and the poop, whatever that was on the wall. And the recruit was standing there, and I'm ITing the crap out of the recruits, you know, for the 10 and a quarter deck. And then I was going online. I was, you know, telling them to pick up empty out your foot lockers, pick this up, yada, yada. I was just trying to create as much chaos as possible. And, but I'll never forget when I turned around and those kids were Indian style, they were like, their eyes were this huge when I kicked that bird, and they were trying to get away from me, like they're trying to open the sea, you know? And they were terrified. He was like, get on your face, get on, you, get on your face. And I started IT and grabbed the house mouse. They came out with a clear trash bag, and I go, I grabbed the kids, like, how the hell are you gonna put a bird in this clear trash bag without anybody knowing about it? Go get the black one, you know, get the black trash bag. So they go in, they grab the trash, and I saw the recruit that was still standing next to the poop and the blood, and the bird's just like on the ground, like ah. And I go, what are you doing? Well, I was ITing recruits. Like, this recruit doesn't know where to wipe the freaking bird poop, whatever. And I grabbed his head and I was like, figure it out. And it was like, I at the time I was like, I can't believe I just did that. It was like, and he's just like, oh, yes, sir, yes, sir. And he goes to the whiskey locker, grabs something, cleans up the mess. House mouse comes out with a black trash can. I grabbed the bird, I stuffed it in there, and I went, wow. Because it was still moving around, you know? And I didn't want nothing moving around when those kids took it to the dumpster, you know? The bird stopped moving. I tied up the black trash bag, gave it to the house mouse, and I told him, when you go downstairs, you will not stop for another drill instructor. You will take this to the dumpster. Do you understand? And the bag goes, I started fucking matching the bird. And these recruits are just freaking terrified, you know? And so they take off. The recruit cleans up the mess. I'd already gone through like 30 or 40 recruits, you know, because you only have 10 on a quarter deck at a time. And I already gone through, and I looked at my watch. It's like, oh crap, chow hall. So I got everybody ready for chow. Get online right now, boom, boom, boom. We were like 5 minutes away. And so I get all the recruits down at the bottom at the bottom in formation. The recruit that was cleaning the poop and the blood, I made him fire watch so he can stay behind and kind of clean himself up because he had, you know, bird poop on his head. And then I took off to the chow hall. Took off to the chow hall, totally freaking forgot about it, you know, whatever. Here comes a gong show. So the gong show, man, so basically the gong show back in the day, there used to be like a big disc where you just bong, and it's like the gong show. But what you would do is you would kind of act out funny scenarios or crazy scenarios that happened during boot camp, and they portray it. Yeah. This is actually like the night before they graduate boot camp, you know? So it's kind of like a, hey, get all your laughs out, you know, all the funny things that you ever saw, and they act it out and play it out, you know? So they asked the seniors, like, hey, we want to do another skit from Drill Instructor Staff Sergeant Garcia. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, what the hell are they gonna do? And these kids went and got ketchup, mayonnaise, and one recruit was the bird, one recruit was me, one recruit was freaking the guy that got the bird, you know, and they literally played the whole scene. And I'm standing there, and I forgot to tell the senior about this. I forgot to tell him that I had done this to the recruits, you know. And they acted out the whole fucking scenario where the bird, one recruit was the bird, he goes, and, you know, ketchup and freaking mayonnaise hits the wall. They totally reenacted the whole situation. And I'm looking at my senior, and I'm mortified. Like, I can feel the blood just drain on my face, and he just looks at me, and he goes, what the fuck? And he goes, like, why didn't I tell him before? So once the whole skit was done, he gets up, gets in the duty hut, makes a phone call, and all of a sudden, all the other drill instructors start showing up. Do it again. Yeah, we want to see it. We want to see it. And so it got played out again. So all the hats in the company saw that. When you first see the recruits, they stink. They stink, and you're just like, oh my gosh, these guys are civilians. They're 17, 18, maybe up to 26 years old. And you're looking at them, they're just a mob. Just this weak, flimsy, skinny, bald-headed, whatever it is. And at first, you feel a little bit of empathy for these individuals because they have no idea what they just got themselves into. That way of thinking lasted for maybe about a minute. And then after that, it was like, these guys, I got to teach them to be, you know, break them down. I got to break these kids down. I got to be nothing but total chaos because that's what my job is. That's what my job description is. That's what my senior told me. He's like, all I want you to do is just create havoc. I come in, I save them, yada, yada, yada. He's like, oh, I see what's going on. But like when you're doing that, oh my gosh, you're looking at these kids and you just want to mold them, like you just want to, hey, listen to me, It's like, and it's always the bad recruits. The bad recruits is the ones you always freaking remember because you spent so much fucking time on those kids. And the good recruits, the squad leaders, the guides, whatever, you hardly remember them because they did their job. You know what I mean? You didn't have to spend extra time on them. So my thing is whenever I ever saw one of those bad recruits finally become a Marine, I'm like, there you go. Look at you. Look at you. You don't even act the same way that you did before, He's walking around with pride. His chest is sticking out. The little tears come down. Stop being a crybaby, just to toughen him up a little bit. But I know damn well I probably would have cried too in his position, just to keep that mentality and that and acting as the hard drill instructor, so those individuals would be like, But I had a lot of pride in some of those in my platoons that graduated. But you also think about all that work that you put into it. And sometimes you wonder, man, was it enough? Was it worth it? You learn their gait. You learn the way they walk, the way they stand, how their head looks like from behind, how their head looks like from the side. You know everything about that recruit. So if you ever saw him in the fleet, even with long hair, he's like, oh, I know that kid. Hey, you turn around, he's like, yep, that's him. That's my, hey, date, whoever it was. He was like, but you become very intimate with those individuals because you see them every freaking day, And when I was a drill instructor, 2004, our class was probably one of the last classes where you were literally treated like a recruit throughout the whole DI school. I think the class after me, halfway through that training, they changed training to be more of like an academy type thing. So I understood what those kids were going through because we went through it as a senior staff NCO. We're getting yelled at like recruits, So when they finally graduate and they get their Eagle, Globe, and Anchor and they march off and then their parents walk by them because they don't recognize them, I'm sitting there like, that's freaking awesome, dude. Because I remember seeing that when I was a recruit. He's like, hey, isn't that your mom? Because, we shared fellow recruits. Isn't that your mom? She totally walks by. And then to get to see it again as a drill instructor, he's like, oh, now I know why they don't recognize me. This kid's a totally complete different person when they graduate boot camp. And I'm pretty proud of them, too. From boot camp and until they finally graduate, they're with you for, 24/7, 3 months, So I made it a point to track my recruits in a sense, like, hey, where'd they go? How are they doing? And so forth. Somehow one recruit or another recruiter will know each other recruit and somehow that network sticks around. So all I have to do is just remember one recruit and they'll tell me what happened. And it's unfortunate when you start hearing that some were KIA and Fallujah or Ramadi or Afghanistan or whatever. So whenever I did get those, not notifications, but when I did find out that they got, KIA or wounded or lost a leg, whatever, it kind of hits you hard because you wonder, oh man, what happened first? And he was like, hey, did you do your job that you're supposed to do? It's always the first thing that pops in my head, But when you find out one that's passed away from, combat, you literally remember their faces and the dumb things they did that you had to correct them over and over and over. And sometimes I kind of wish I didn't have to remember that part because it's kind of like, because they're babies, Yeah, I can still see their faces. Oh, man. That's actually never happened before. Yeah, that's the hardest part is when you find out that they're gone. And then the other one was, what's also good is something that happened recently. One of my recruits invited me to his retirement. It's been 20 years. I'm sitting there, oh my God, you're inviting me to your retirement? It's been 20 fucking years already, dude. He's like, yeah. My drill instructor, Sergeant Arps, Mickey Arps, at the time when I was a recruit, I was his scribe. So I was doing scribe's always late at night doing paperwork, whatever. And one day he pulls me in and goes, hey, good job on what I was doing at the time. And he goes, sit down. And he pulls out a little photo book album. And in it is him. And I want to say he was in the Philippines or maybe even Thailand. And he's just showing me pictures of him out partying with his friends, Subic Bear, whatever it was that he was showing me. And I was like, dude, this is fucking cool, so there is fun in the Marine Corps instead of just being yelled at as a recruit in boot camp, whatever. And he just told me a couple of stories, like, someday maybe you'll be doing the same thing, Fast forward freaking 15 years later, man, I remembered that. And I happened to be like organizing a lot of my photos from the invasion. And what I wound up doing was I started grabbing those folders, and I remember what he had done. And I actually pulled in my scribe, you know, when I was a senior, and I did the same thing to him, to 2 recruits per cycle. So one recruit, one cycle, another recruit, another cycle, did exactly the same thing he did to me. Just so I can, because I'll never forget when he did that to me, like when he showed me his photos and so forth. And then I was like, man, I can't wait to do that to my Marines or whatever. And here I am as a drill instructor, and I did it to 2 recruits. I got sent to 3rd Tracks. So that's technically where the last unit I retired from. So in 2007, I left the drill field. I was going through a divorce, same time frame in 2007. Because I was going through divorce, I was going through therapy, and a therapist actually pulled me off to the side and said, hey, look, you have PTSD, and I want you to take this pamphlet, and I want you to fill it out, be as accurate, as honest as you possibly can. When I gave it back to her, that's when I figured out that I have PTSD, you know, anger issues and so forth. But you got to mind you, I went from the invasion, and then 6 months later, I became a drill instructor. In 3 years of intense freaking, you know, an environment, right? And then all of a sudden, now I'm going back to the fleet, you know. When I left the depot, went to 3rd Tracks, within 2 days, the sergeant major at 3rd Tracks, Troy Dabney, good friend of mine, he sends me home. He goes, all I've heard is lieutenants and Marines being yelled at by you. You're not on the drill field anymore. Just chill out. Matter of fact, go home and just chill out. Come back freaking next week. He's like, am I in trouble? It's like, no. I understand where you're coming, because he was a drill instructor too. I understand where you're coming from. Just go home, chill out. Because I literally left October 7th from the depot, and I checked in the same day to 3rd Tracks, and I was already yelling at lieutenants and whatever for hands in their pockets or whatever it was. And I eventually did. When he sent me home, I realized, okay, I got to chill out. This is not the depot. This is the fleet, whatever. Don't get me wrong. I did correct individuals that needed to get it corrected, but like that's the first thing that they remember me by Sergeant Major Dabney telling me to go home, because he kept on hearing all the lieutenants complaining about Gunnery Sergeant Garcia. He was correcting me and yelling at me like I was a recruit, you know, blah, blah, whatever. He was like, well, were you supposed to be on the phone? No, you weren't, sir. So maybe next time don't be, you know, on the phone, yada, yada, yada. But he calls me in and he goes, hey, Garcia, you're going home. So, and at that time, that's when I started thinking, you know what, I need to start taking care of me. And I started going to deployment health for therapy and such, which I 100% recommend every Marine, soldier, trooper, whatever. Go get looked at, talk to somebody, decompress, process some of the stuff that you've gone through. It helped me out quite a bit. It actually slowed me down also, because again, I was so intense from, you know, leaving the drill field, showing up to the new duty station. I don't know the environment. I'm 3 years out of my MOS. So in those 3 years, the motor vehicles had changed drastically from no armor vehicles to up armored vehicles to 7 tons, old 5 tons are being, you know, gone, so forth. So I had to relearn my whole job when I went back to 3rd Tracks. And one of my biggest things is like, whenever I get an inspection, like an IG or a phasmo, I don't want to be below 95%. So I was always like on top of my Marines to the point where they became self-sufficient, fire and forget. And so the reason I did that is because I want to go on deployments. And there's no way a gunnery sergeant at 3rd Track, Border T, was going to go on a deployment, because that's like a staff job, I guess, in a sense. So the only way I was going to be able to go on a deployment is if I can prove that my Marines can do the freaking job on their own and such, you know. A deployment situation came up. It was an individual augmentee to be a border advisor for people going through the border. And we went to Iraq at a city called RR, and that was in 2009. I spent about 8 months there doing border security in Saudi Arabia and Iraq. I got to learn a lot of things about how to communicate with Iraqis and how their what's the word I'm looking for, their culture. You're forced to have to learn it, because it's kind of crazy to be in a room like this big and there's like 10 of them, and you don't know if one of them could be an insider or not. So your brain is constantly scanning and looking facial expressions and so forth. How they act is drastically different how we act as Americans. So I'm kind of getting confused. Is he giving me good vibes? Is he giving me bad vibes? You know what I mean? So that mentality just stuck with me when I came back home. from that deployment, and I just could not shake it. Everything that, if I was talking to you and I saw your eyes, move to the bottom left, bottom right, is he lying to me right now? Is he, what I mean? And I hated it. I became very cynical with people. I started judging you for how you said something or how you were talking to me and so forth. And it's all because I was constantly in those rooms in a small area, doing a meeting and trying to figure out if this guy's gonna pop me or not, or hurt our team and so forth. But luckily, nothing really happened bad on that deployment in 2009. It wasn't kinetic at all. I went back out in 2012 to Afghanistan on another team like that, an embedded team. And we happened to be in the 2-5's AO, 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines AO up in Nowzad. Our job was maintain route security with our embedded team called the ANCOP, Afghan National Civil Order Police. These individuals, all NCOs and above, educated, can speak broken English. So it's almost like, I don't know how to explain it. To me, I always felt like they were like a small unit Marine Corps that's super specialized. They come in, they stabilize it for 30 days, or they have a 90-day deployment, and they stabilize the environment, and then they punch out. And the reason why they do that is so they don't get corrupted if they stay within that area or that city too long, because the cops, the Afghan cops will become corrupted easy because they're not going anywhere. And the Taliban knows where they're living. Hey, we're going to kill your family. We're going to do this to you if you don't work with us. Okay, we'll be working with you. You know what I mean? That deployment was kinetic, just as much as the invasion, but on a different level, because it's just, I think there was 19 of us. That's how big we were. And we had 4 vehicles. And we were the only unit that can move around in the AO with less than 3 vehicles, or less than 4 vehicles, because we could only move around with 3. And you actually had to get like an order from the RCT commander to let us run around with only 3 vehicles, because the rules of engagement is you had to go outside the wire with like 4 gun trucks and then whatever your assortment of your convoy is going to be. So it's kind of weird for us to be running around like cowboys, and 3 MATVs and 1 MRAP with a mine roller in front, and to provide route security from Nowzad down to Shergazi in the northern province of Helmand. That was intense. What's the best way to explain it? When our unit was embedded with the ANCOP up in Nowzad, we hit tick reports every other day. It was almost like every day we got shot at, somehow, some way, whatever. I was lucky enough to have a helmet cam, and I was able to record a IED strike that happened to one of our NCOP individuals. He was driving one of those pickup trucks and hit an IED in a wadi. When the IED happened, our vehicles moved in to provide security for it. We didn't want to go into wadi too much because we didn't know if there's going to be another IED or not. I'm the gunner, so I'm a gunnery sergeant on the turret of the gun, because our teams are so small that you can become very complacent if you don't change out fucking positions, So everybody was a driver, everybody can become the VC, and everybody can be the gunner. Or even except for the minesweeper stuff. Means it was always the corporals and sergeants that did the minesweep in front. We go in, we get behind the vehicle. You can see the vehicle all mangled up. The driver, his legs just mangled on both of them. And they're moving them towards our vehicle because the corpsman's in my truck. And our 2 corpsmen go out, they start assessing them, and so forth. We're trying to figure out if we should clear out an area for an LZ. So I told one of my Marines to use a minesweeper to set up an LZ near the wadi. And the 2 corpsmen on the bottom working on that individual that was driving the vehicle, and his jaw is like this. He can't open his jaw. I'm sure he's got traumatic brain injury. His legs is just mangled. One of his, you can see the meat just kind of hanging up. You can see where they put the tourniquets on it. But what was funny about that is when they were bringing him towards my truck, the Afghans were using the tourniquet to pick him up and move him to the, I was like, no, get your hands out of there. They just didn't know, but they were carrying him through the tourniquets towards the freaking, where we're at. Dutcher, my corpsman, he's a senior corpsman, and we had a boot corpsman with him, and he's showing the young corpsman Berg what he should be doing, so forth. And when I looked down, you could already see him. He was trying to do a trike because his jaw was so locked from the traumatic brain injury that he couldn't get any air or anything. So they cut his throat and they did a tracheotomy on him right there in the field, And they're giving them. I was asking for vitals so I can pass the word up to the lieutenant. And he was basically saying, it's not good, Gunny, it's not good, you know? So we were trying to figure out if we should get a helo in or not. And because Obama, you know, President had said, hey, we're leaving the Afghanistan, all assets started being pulled back, helping Afghan units, if that makes any sense. So we didn't have the air power that we thought we might have to save an Afghan unit personnel. So what wind up happening is instead of bringing an LZ to the location where the IED happened, we're going to take him to the COP. When that was going on, we got IDF. Fucking mortars dropped in on us. We started getting pop shots coming towards us. I didn't necessarily hear any snaps that were close to my vehicle, but we did hear rounds, you know, whizzing by and so forth. So I have my binos. If I show you the video, you can see my hands just doing this. You can see my GPS, and I'm just looking down. And the Afghans, they were just shooting rounds downrange towards a little village beyond the wadi. And when I was looking in, I could see like these two individuals on top of a building, and I thought they were kids. You know, I was like, no, they're shooting at kids. You can hear me yell that out on the video. So in hindsight, I didn't know the distance. So they looked like little kids, but they're actually adults. They actually had weapons, and I didn't know that. I didn't see the weapons because they were right next to each other and just like aiming towards us, and they had like black and white tops on their clothing. So when I was like, so one of the corpsmen was saying, hey, where are they shooting at? Where are they shooting from, Gunny? He was like, it's like, don't worry about it. They're shooting at kids. And I didn't realize that they were adults. And then another IDF hits on the indirect fire. A mortar round drops like about 50, 60 feet away. You know, just a crack. You can see the dirt just fucking, you know, fly. You hear the sand hit you in the face. And the Afghans are just like, just trying to shoot the whole area, you know. Eventually made the Afghans stop shooting towards the village. And we don't know if those bullets are going to hit civilians in those buildings. We actually got the medevac into our vehicle, and then we took off towards to Camp Nowzad, put that guy on a helo and take him out. Unfortunately, he passed away on the flight towards Camp Nowzad. If you look at the video, you know, we're all taught 90 seconds when somebody's hit, they can bleed out, you know, like that. Dude, we didn't even get him out till almost like 45 minutes, you know? So it's like, again, if we had the asset, if I was a Marine, I'm sure there's a helo and a heartbeat, you know, coming in, but we couldn't do that for them. And I felt really bad about that. The crazy thing is that when I found out later that the Afghan unit, Stephen, who I see, he was explaining, he was like, it was a good thing that he passed away. It was like, why? It was because he wouldn't have been able to use his legs. He would have been a burden on his family. I'm like, whoa, dude, they never would have thought that because he can't walk or function, he'd be a burden to their family. It's better for them not to be there, because what they were doing is they were providing food, money to their family because they were in that unit, you know what I mean? Never would have dawned on me that they would not be able to, it would be a struggle for them to take care of somebody that was an amputee or whatnot, you know? What happened on June 23rd, 2012, come back from an 18-hour mobile patrol. It's late at night. I'm smoked. I'm smoked from the whole day. We pull in. The Marines are getting, you know how we ground guide the vehicles into the compound and so forth. The Marines start refueling the trucks, and I start walking towards the COC, and then I start hearing helicopters. It's like, wait a minute, our LZ's outside the COP. It's outside of the COP, maybe 1,000 yards or something like that. But there was no vehicles out there to provide security for a helicopter. So I walk in the COC, and the lieutenant and we're asking, hey, who's in these helicopters? He's like, they're all scrambling. We have no idea who's coming in. So while he's talking to them, I'm looking at the G-Boss, and the G-Boss is basically a big camera about 200 feet in the air, and it looks down, and it's got thermals, black and white, you know, whatever, and it's looking right at the LZ zone, and I can see the helicopters coming in. So here's one helicopter, and I can see them side by side, and all of a sudden one just goes, boom, and the tail snapped off, and it just rolled off. It was like, oh, shit, and I turned around, helo just crashed, and I just ran out to where the Marines were refueling their vehicles. It was like, hey, stop refueling, get in the fucking vehicles. We got to go provide security for that helo that just went down, you know? And those Marines was like, helo went down, yeah. And so we all quickly got in the vehicles. We took off. 2-5 started scrambling some vehicles. It was Weapons Company 2-5 that was at that COP. When we showed up, they're already moving bodies, personnel, casualties from one helicopter to the other helicopter. They were also bringing in civilian contractors too. So they got off the helicopter. the one helicopter that didn't crash had that casualty that injured, she was a door gunner. Her name was Christy Ennis, I believe is how you say her name. She was a door gunner. What happens when the helicopter crashed, the 50 cal slammed into her jaw and just shattered it and was knocked out. My buddy Bruce, he's a civilian contractor that was coming out there to be the police advisor. He was in that helo. He was literally right above, underneath where the tail broke off and just like rolled off. He was like in the back looking up, and when he said he looked up, he just saw it just break apart and just roll off to the, to the dirt. And then he saw the door gunner. She was on the ground. He said he immediately went over there to check her out. He was Army Airborne medic, and he provided a medical aid on her to stabilize her. And she had a compound break in her leg. It was just sticking out. So he was able to, set it, wrap it up, and then they put her into the other helicopter and they took her away. So when Bruce Pankow is his name, when he came into the cop at Nowzad, I asked him, like, who are you, man? He was like, oh, I'm here to replace so-and-so. I'm the police advisor for this, for the Afghans. He's like, oh, and he explained the whole story of what he saw and what happened. And ever since then, we became friends. Didn't even know him at all. He was just an police advisor. And to this day, I just recently posted on Facebook a picture of he and I at his nephew's graduation in boot camp in San Diego. And I posted that story, what I just told you about. And I even linked a couple of articles for Christy Ennis that was involved in that accident. She's doing really good, bro. Like, I'm really impressed with her for what she's doing, and I hope she keeps kicking ass. July 17th is the day I decided to retire. One of my Marines was involved in an IED explosion, and he was getting his Purple Heart from the Commandant of the Marine Corps. So we went from Nowzad down to Shargazi, where 2-5 headquarters was at, and we were gonna wait for the Commandant to fly in, but we showed up like 6 hours early. The team that we were embedded called for help. It's like, hey, Taliban just hijacked a tractor trailer truck, and they got 3 brothers inside of them, and they have them hostage. Can you help us out? My lieutenant comes in and goes, hey, we're gonna go out and do a fucking rescue mission. He's like, all right, cool. So funny thing is, on the way out, I'm talking to my Gunny Woodard. I go, hey, Gunny, what are the odds one of us gets a Purple Heart on the day we're gonna get Purple Heart for Freddie? By the Commandant Marine Corps, And he's an infantry guy, and he hit me so hard. He's like, you don't say shit like that, man. He's like, yeah, whatever. So we take off, and we set up a cordon in the area that the vehicle was stolen from, right? So it was Gunny Woodard and another vehicle, and then my vehicle, I'm on a gun truck. I'm on a turret again. My vehicle and the lieutenant's vehicle, we go towards the area where the vehicle was hijacked, and we're trying to find out information about the hostage situation. They left the truck, but they took the people. And we're trying to move the truck for them. And we're pushing it with our MATV. I'm sitting on the turret. So the truck's this way, I'm on the turret. I see Lieutenant down here with a Corporal Bell. He's talking to the CO of the ANCOP unit. There's a gunner with a dishka on top of it. And over to the side was like a small little building, I believe. And as he was starting to move, I looked like this, and also like this big flash. And fucking like something hit me hard in the face. But it was so crazy because it looked like a slow ball of fire just coming out of nowhere on the ground, like no more than 30 or 40 feet away. And what happened was rocks hit me in the face, and it's straight. I thought I got, penetration to my face. It hit me pretty hard where my face was like just scratched, like a little baby scratch. But when it happened, I went like this. It felt like somebody just cold cocked me. And you get that flash. And when I went down, there was an image of me holding what I thought was my son's head, like the top of his calic. Like my hand was on top of his calic, and I can see the like dust on top of it. And then I saw my hand on top of it, and then I looked up, and I was on the 240, and I saw the range on the back was like at 500. So I spilled it all the way back to like 900. I aimed up. I saw where the rocket, it was a 107 recoilless rifle. You could see where the plume, when they shot the rocket, you could see the plume. And I look up, and I put the 240 on there, and I can quickly look down. I can see the lieutenant, and he's yelling out ad drag. And I go 900 meters to the front, or west. And all of a sudden I pull the trigger, and you can see the tracer round just like right into the window, dude. Like perfect. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I thought that was fucking badass. It's just like a stream of bullets just go right in the window. And then the disc starts going off, and then the Marines are starting to shoot towards the building. Lieutenant, I believe, gets an ISR on the air, and the ISR explained that they dismounted and took off further, and we went to go chase them. And right before we did that, the lieutenant called on the radio, Gunny's hit. But that's all they said. Because I took, shit in my face, dust and dirt, whatever. And the Marines that were doing the cordon, they thought I was like down hard and like, oh shit, we got to go fucking save Gunny or whatever. Because like, he's still capable, that's him on a gun. Because I was like, rah, rah, rah. We wind up moving out towards the area where the rocket was shot at. Happens to be right in front of a wadi, their IED. So we had to mark it with powder or whatever. We moved around. We finally got to this set of buildings. We wind up meeting an old elder. He explained that wasn't us. He was beating one guy because the Taliban had used his house to shoot the rocket at us, and he was punishing him for letting them use that house area for, the AMCOP was going to hem him up. They were going to take him to jail and shit like that. But they worked it out where it wasn't their fault, and that ended that situation. And it was kind of cool because later on, about a week later, we got a word that the ISR found that truck and they destroyed it with a rocket or a missile weeks later. Now, we saved 2 of those 3. In the third person, maybe a week, 2 weeks later, they found his head in the middle of a road just north of our camp. So he didn't make it, but we did save 2 of the brothers. So once that whole situation was done, I'm pretty hyped up, banged up, kind of scared. I just got hit. And that's when I decided I'm fucking done. I'm going to retire from the Marine Corps because this is way too close for all the stuff that I've gone through. We show up to Shagazi and we just show up just in time for the commandant to come in. And we're still wearing filthy uniforms. We changed out of our good camis to put in our frog suits on. And then we didn't even change out of our frog suits when we show up to formation. There's Sergeant Freddie with his M16 that's got like wrap on it. The infantry guys, how they wrap their weapons. And it's just like he's standing there getting his Purple Heart. And I'm not 100% sure what he said, but I'm in the background sitting there with a fucking bandage on my freaking face, whatever, and just sitting there. And General Amos comes up to us and says, hey, almost kind of the same situation. Like, what were the chances you guys getting hit on the day? I actually submitted my Appendix J and a couple days later, and when I got back to the States, the good old boy network, why are you retiring, dude? You're gonna be a master sergeant. You're 100% gonna be a master. I was like, I'm done, dude. I'm over it. I'm out. After the deployment, I didn't realize that I banged up my hip pretty good. And so I wound up going to Wounded Warrior. And they were doing eye test on me, and my cognitive skills were fucked up. Like things that were pretty fast for me are a lot slower. I couldn't stay focused on certain things. So I was at Wounded Warrior before my retirement happened. That's pretty much where I stayed at until I retired. I didn't have a plan when I was getting out, only because things kind of fell apart quickly. I went through a divorce. I finally went through a divorce with my second wife. Nothing bad. It's just like things just wasn't working out. I wasn't in the same sheet. We weren't on the same sheet of music. A lot of it's my fault. I was still aggravated. One of the best things she ever did for me after that deployment, she went to all the meetings that 2-5 had for their wives. And she gave me 30 days of, you do whatever you want to do after this deployment, and then hopefully you'll come out of your room and we'll talk. And she gave me those 30 days, dude. It was like the best 30 days I had to decompress at home. You know what I mean? And after those 30 days, it was good enough for me to be, hey, I'm good. Like it's over with. It's in the past. But I was going through a divorce and left the Marine Corps. I did do a contracting job where I worked for the white vehicles on camp, the GMED vehicles, which is basically the government vehicles. I set up a first echelon and QC for those vehicles, basically, and I was getting paid by a company. When I realized that contracting money is not what I thought it was, so in other words, they win a contract, they're only going to pay you one specific amount of money until that contract's done. There's no moving up, I guess. So when I realized that, I was like, I'm done. It's like, I don't think I need this. And it was perfect too, because my disability and my retirement basically covered everything that I need to take care of for myself and so forth. I was on Percocets for my back. Being a dodo, I didn't realize that I was, it's oxy, and I didn't realize I was kind of hooked on it. Again, I don't like taking medication. If you know me, my friends know me, I don't like taking any kind of medication because it feels weird, but my back was pretty bad. So I was taking it when I finally was retiring and my actual EAS was set. That's when I started smoking because I didn't want to smoke while I was on terminal, just in case something happened, whatever. Was on mood enhancers, I was on pain meds, and I quit it all cold turkey and I started smoking pot. And when I was smoking pot, I couldn't understand why I was still angry, why I was still, just like, what's wrong with my hands are shaking or whatever. Lo and behold, I didn't even know I was detoxing from freaking the Percocets that I was using. I had no idea. I was just like in this rage and I just couldn't get out of it. I was in my house or my condo and just like pacing back and forth, the sweats, And then about a week or two later, no, it's 2 weeks later, I felt better. I was thinking, hey, I'm on the mend. Hey, I'm doing good. Smokes a little bit of weed. I'm feeling good, yada, yada, yada. I decided to go to school. So I went to art school to do 2D and 3D animation. And all I wanted to do was be able to write the stories that we're talking about right now, put it on paper and kind of, throw some funnies in it, so it's not so drastic or so bad. And when I was going to the school, I was doing really well, but you had to take math. I fucking hate math. So I was failing algebra like left and right. It's like, dude, I can't comprehend this. And it got to the point where like, I was so frustrated that my brain was like an old TV. When you turn it off, it's like it was gone. Like I couldn't even think about what was the numbers or whatever it was. I was just so frustrated that I was like, you know what? I don't think I can do this again. So I quit school and see if I can take a break and see if I can get myself readjusted and whatnot. But I never went back and I started traveling. I started traveling to my friends' houses. I started doing like the Rambo visiting your war buddies, see how they're doing, yada, yada. And that kept me busy. That kept me feeling good. I get to talk to my friends. We get to bullshit. We get to drink the beers, reminisce about the past and kind of work on what we can do better about ourselves now that we're no longer Marines, because the machine's still going to run, no matter what. But that's basically what all I've been doing so far, is just traveling and visiting my friends. And I am in a better place. I'm still now dealing with my childhood trauma. And hopefully that'll be a chapter or a new season where I can be like, hey, it's behind me. I'm not sure if everybody goes through the same feeling or not, or there's triggers that happen when you go through a panic attack. And the one that really got me was we were doing NBC training. And you know how we were about level 4 during the invasion, right? We had all that gear on. There was just one time, I forgot to tell you about this one. There's just one time where LAR had just gone through. We went, I think this is after Nazaria. LAR had gone through and they chewed up some vehicles on the road. We wound up pulling up on a set of vehicles that had some soldiers, Iraqi soldiers in a family. And there was a kid in there. And someone told me it was a female. I thought it was a male boy. But they pulled the kid out and there was a tree. It almost looked like a palm tree. And they leaned her up against it and the corpsman is working on her or him. And remember I was telling you about that hair calic? That same hair calic was on her head. Like I remember looking down at her and I just see her head and I immediately started thinking about my son, and he's like, I think at the time he was like 5 years old. I was thinking about my son and I was just thinking about this person that lost her family on the road and possibly could die right here. And it hit me pretty hard, so I had to walk away. And I walked away and the Marines were digging pits to fill up sandbags and so forth to reinforce the vehicles and such. And we had a Fox battery vehicle where it detects NBC, like nerve agents, it's an NBC vehicle where it detects, like gas or whatever, and it went off. Woo, woo. So gas. Mind you, we were digging holes in sandbags, and so we're out of breath, and all of a sudden now we got to put a freaking mask on, and I'm like this. You know how hard it is to breathe inside that gas mask, and I'm thinking, I was like, dude, I can't get enough air to feel all right. But I don't want to take the mask off because we don't know if that's a nerve agent or whatever it is. And my brain is just struggling to, don't rip it off, don't rip it off, rip it off, rip it off, don't rip it off. It's just my brain's just internal. And it must have lasted like 5 minutes, all clear. And I went, I still couldn't breathe fast enough, whatever. Fast forward freaking 10 years later, almost 10 years later, we're doing NBC training, same situation. We got the whole mop gear on. My buddy Jason is in front of me. He said, my eyes went white. And I, as calmly as I possibly could, tell him, because you know how you got those gloves? You can't take that. You don't know where your little string is at, right? I couldn't get it off fast enough. He was like, Jason, take this thing off. And he's like, you all right, man? He goes like, and as soon as he saw my eyes, he started moving, trying to get me off. He's like, take it off. And I pull it off, and my heart was just freaking pounding. I thought I was having a heart attack. And I was like, something's wrong with me, dude. I can't breathe. My chest is pounding, you know, whatever. I started sweating. He goes, dude, you're white, man. So he kind of walked me towards a corpsman. Corpsman talks to me. He's like, you know, listen to my heart, whatever. He was like, hey, Gunny, I don't want to tell you this, but that's probably a panic attack. He's like, what? I don't have a panic attack, you know? I can't have a panic attack. I'm a gun, you know, whatever. He was like, I'm pretty sure that was a panic attack. And he was like, fuck. So I wound up, that was my first initial panic attack I ever had. And it came more frequently than I suspected or I expected is what I was getting at. The other time was when I was just cleaning my vehicle and my brain got so relaxed and so, hey, this is a cool, you know, I'm cleaning my car. Boom. Where's your weapon? Where's your freaking NBC? Where's your gear? Where's this? Like all of a sudden my brain just went, started sweating, went right into a panic attack. I breathe, you know, I'm not in Afghanistan, I'm not in Iraq. I'm sitting here in front of my Mustang, cleaning the wheels, whatever it is. Chill out. Like there was a lot of moments where I just like, chill the hell out. There's nothing wrong. There's none of this, you know, yada, yada, yada. The panic attacks eventually started going down as time goes on, you know, and I started actually changing my perspective of what happened on those events. It still bothers me though that kid, she did pass away, by the way. She had her cavity was filling up with fluids, blood. And so they did the pneumothorax and, you know, you can see the fluids fly out. There's no way they're gonna bring a helicopter to save a young child during a combat, you know, environment. So my Marines did the right thing and they actually buried her there with her feet pointing towards Mecca. Because we want to make sure that any kind of religious thing happens, if we were part of that we follow in their manner. So that was something that I learned also. I didn't know that you're supposed to when you bury them, their feet are towards Mecca. You know, we just made sure that happened for that young child. The kid thing really jacks me up when it comes to war, because, you know, they're innocent. You know, they're being dragged around by their parents, and unfortunately they were a victim of, you know, violence, you know, war. You know, my whole career in the Marine Corps, it's like the best and worst ride ever. Like I was here for the ride. You know, I'm a Marine. I got to see combat. You know, I done some cool things in Korea, Thailand, whatever. And then another combat environment that the war happens, you know. This is stuff that I read when I was a kid on books like, you know, 2-5 holding up, you know, the Hungary in Korea, you know, and so forth. Like, I wonder how it was for those guys back then. You know, I can only imagine until I'm finally in that position. It's like, oh, now I know what they were thinking about. Now I know what was going on, you know. And it gives a lot of context to those stories back then. But for me, it felt like I was just on one of the coolest and craziest freaking rides in my life, because who gets paid to go overseas and blow stuff up, or go train and build some stuff up and blow stuff up? You know what I mean? It's just like, we're actually getting paid to do some really cool things for American government and for the Marine Corps, you know? And back in the day, we were doing it with crappy gear, you know, before the war happened in 2003, we were still holding those flak jackets, you know, from Vietnam that won't even stop a freaking 9mm round, you know, and here we are thinking it's gonna protect me from, you know, a bullet, whatever, and lo and behold, we're just, the aggressiveness of who we are as Marines is what causes us to be, you know, badass. I'm worried about all the interpreters that we work with, and as far as I know, the 4 that we had in Afghanistan, I think 3 are safe. I don't know about the other one. The ones in Iraq, remember when Iraq fell? They're all in the States. All 4 of them are in the States. So like, I'm glad that they're in the States helping us out, whatever, but I'm just glad they're no longer in danger. But the ones in Afghanistan, that really messed me up, because, you know, it just sucks that all that work that we did and it just collapsed like that, the way it did, you know, and it's rough to see all the hard work that you do, and, you know, hoping to help these people in a sense. And we were, these people actually, like, I'll never forget when the new CEO came in from the ANCOP. He goes, you guys have bled for our country. We need to bleed for our own country. When he said that, dude, I was like, this little knot in my throat came out, and he was really adamant about it. It's like, you guys need to go home. This is our country. We need to start doing things our own way and such. And I actually respected that CO for saying that to us, you know, whether he meant it or not, because, you know, we're in Afghanistan. I don't know if those guys are insiders or not, but like, I truly believe that he meant that. And that really affected me. It made my time there in Afghanistan a little bit better. It's kind of cool where even my friends, our call sign was Gamble, call sign Gamble. Our call sign hit the tick report so much that they even had a general fly out to find out what's going on, you know, and yeah, that was interesting. Talking about these stories does help. There's probably some people that don't ever want to bring it up, you know. Maybe you can do something similar to this with yourself, you talking to the camera, and maybe you can hear yourself talk about what bothers you, and maybe you can hear yourself in a way where it's like, hey, that's kind of not cringy, but I shouldn't be worrying about that, you know, or maybe change your perspective of what's traumatizing you, what's causing you your pain, I guess, in a way. If you're able to talk about it, I promise it does help. And I hope that anybody that has an opportunity to do this, that it helps them out and it makes them feel good, and don't beat yourself up, because we have a long life to freaking, to give out to other members and friends and so forth, and tell them your story so they can go like, oh yeah, you know, that was awesome. Or I never realized how long my career was and how many things that I've been a part of. Like for me, I had Vietnam veterans that were my first sergeants, my sergeant majors, you know, and then me being just after the Gulf War, and then I was in the invasion and then Afghanistan, and I could only imagine what those junior Marines that were under my care thought about me at that time. It's like, to me, I was just doing my job, but later on they come back and was like, Gunny, dude, you're freaking badass for doing this and doing that. He was like, Gunny, you're an asshole when you did this to me, but you know what, I appreciate it, because if I didn't do what you told me to do, you know, things wouldn't have worked out the way it did, you know? But yeah, I do appreciate the ride that I've been on, and I like to spread the word out.